Well, Eric, getting things kicked off here this week, kind of seems like, harvest is starting to be in a little bit of full swing, especially here in central Iowa. We're not really fully rolling with the combines, but last week was driving past a few fields that actually had quite a bit of combines rolling through the corn, kind of seeming like that time of year for a lot of things right now.
Yeah, I mean, and most of Iowa's been dry for the last 20, 30 days. Same thing with my home state of Illinois, so much of the mid-south, the eastern corn belt, oh, the mid-Atlantic, the southeast, the southwest. Like I could just keep going. Like
Yeah.
it's been wet in some places, and if you look past this past weekend, it's been this corridor here. I don't know if you saw this, but there was some storms that started in South Dakota. One storm went straight north all the way into southern Manitoba, produced 22 tornadoes yesterday. Now, some folks did get a bit excited about this. We saw some rains try to get into the eastern corn belt, but this was just not enough to break a drought there. And so we keep asking the same questions. What is it going to take to get things to kind of shift around and change positions and really start to work its way in another direction? So a lot of times we look at the tropics, right? And right now, to be honest with you, I wish there was something big here. You're going, wait a minute. Well, why not the Gulf? Well, a lot of times what can happen is we can get these storm systems over in the Western Pacific that come to the north. They get absorbed into the jet stream flow, and then they dive across the United States, returning Gulf moisture, opening things up and giving us a stormy pattern. But there's nothing going on. And the next system that's here, this one's got an 80% chance of developing. Well, the Bermuda High is clear over there, meaning it's going to probably curl around versus coming to the eastern or the East Coast United States. And I don't have a whole lot developing in the Gulf or the Bay of Campeche or this side of the Caribbean, although I'm still watching it very carefully. So the main player right now is Mario, right? And Mario might possibly bring some of its moisture into California. I was looking at the forecasts and we see that toward the end of this week, this is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I mean, that could be a legit shot at moisture into the southwestern United States. Uh, while we're waiting on tropical systems here that are just missing. I mean, you can see it as clear as I can. These lows are turning themselves to the north before they get to the East Coast, and there's just not a whole lot going on. Now, I say all of that, and in the same breath, though, take a look at today's satellite data. As the sun came up, let's just go back to this morning. Look at this. The sun came up, look at that. And there is a low sitting and spinning here. There's actually three of them. There's one there, a big one here, and another one there. But this is the one I want to focus on because one of those areas that's been in drought is finally getting some rainfall from this unnamed weak tropical system just off the coast. It's Virginia, it's North Carolina, and they desperately need the rain. So some of the new forecasts are like, hey, drop 2 to 3 inches of rain, maybe 4 inches of rain on this very dry but very agriculture productive part of the eastern United States. But I know a lot of folks that are watching you and I right now are like, hey, tell me more about what this is. Is there a legit chance for rain in Missouri, one of our driest spots? And as we look out over that last 30 days, boy, you can see that is a hole, right? Right there with the Missouri, the Mississippi, and the Ohio come together. That's one of our driest spots in the country. So, yes, there's rain coming in here, and it's going to go into the mid-Atlantic, but it doesn't hit that whole drought area. Are we doing anything to revive this or revive that region and get some moisture back into those spots? So, thinking that through, let me show you the nearest forecast, the newest forecast for the next 60 hours or so. Look at that. Maybe later today, some storms in Missouri. Got to be watching for that. We then go all the way into tomorrow morning. This is Tuesday morning through Tuesday afternoon. See this system blowing up in the central US? Nebraska's got rain. South Dakota's got rain. Parts of Colorado have rain. Some storms. There could be some nasty storms out of this as well. And the question is, as we get out there toward Wednesday and Thursday, does this system, as it kind of fully wraps itself up here, push far enough to the east to fill in some of those really, really dry spots? And you know how dry they are. I mean, you just take a look at the statistics. Right here where Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois come together, that 133 means that since August 1st up until the 14th, this is the driest such stretch of about 45 days on record for that same 45-day stretch. It's the same thing over here in Ohio, parts of Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. And this is a problem. This is the watershed of the Missouri Basin, the Mississippi Basin, and the Ohio. And that's why if you look right now, this is kind of a weird graph to look at, but look all the way over here at the edge. The Mississippi River this morning was nearly 5 feet below low stage. Now I want to show you something. It was way below stage in fall of 24, 23, and 22. It was below stage in 21 and 20 as well. The last time when the Mississippi River in fall, late summer and fall, was above low stage was 2019. And I know we all remember what happened in 19 with respect to the rainfall we had there. So this is becoming a very common occurrence. So we're all waiting to see, is this rain really going to get there? Because if you look at the day 4 to day 10 time frame and only look at the European model, it's the only model doing this morning as you and I are talking. It's trying to spread above average rainfall throughout this entire part of the Mississippi and Missouri watershed. Now, don't forget, above average rainfall in late September is not like a deluge of rain, right? It's late summer, but it's trying to bring in moisture. And some of the models are really getting generous with it. Look at this. This is now Thursday into Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Look at the rainfall it's trying to produce in that area. And it's doing this without having wide open access to Gulf moisture either. I mean, it's not. The Bermuda High is gone. I mean, look, see this right here? That is what could be another named system curling out to open ocean around the Bermuda High, which is over toward the Azores. So here's what I'm going to tell you. If I'm in this area, okay, let's take the rainfall totals. They're probably going to be closer to what you end up getting. Could there be, an inch and a half to 2 inches of rain? Yes. If I am here, I'm taking all of the rainfall totals and either cutting them in half or making them a third of their value. The model's going to over predict it because there's drought in that area. So like I would love nothing more. This is my spot. I put my own map, my own dot on my own maps, right? So at 1.9 inches in Mahomet, Illinois, you better believe I want every bit of that. But the reality is I probably will end up getting 3/4 of an inch or less because of the way the current drought is set up. So it's just something we've got to watch very, very carefully. So probability wise, who's got the best chance over the next 10 days of getting an inch? Well, now look, when you see the model spread where I am in Illinois, this is like a 30 to 50% chance. But in Iowa to Nebraska, South Dakota, Minnesota, it's almost an 80 to 100% chance of getting an inch. And that's ultimately the problem with this pattern. When you've been in drought, it's hard to break down. And as I've told you before, Dawson, and we've talked about it, I don't have like a memory of a time when like a drought broke gently, like, oh, you know what? Here's a weekend worth of rain. Enjoy that. It either comes in with a hurricane or it comes in with violent storms. And so I'm just going to have to keep a close eye on it. There is some good news to this pattern. You get out here into the fully into the third week of September. That is not a blocked pattern. I mean, look, there's just ridge, trough, ridge, trough. It's moving, it's open. And so we're all questioning, well, do other models see it? Yep, GFS sees it. So does that mean that as we get out there to that final week of September, that having that trough come across, we're going to start to erase these overall deficits? I think it does. And some of the longer range models are doing that too, Dawson. I mean, take a look at the new forecast from September 19 to October 19. That's a bit more generous with rainfall than we've seen any subseasonal forecast in a long time. And even the new CPC forecast is like, hey, see that area below normal around Kentucky, Tennessee? We probably better shift that a bit farther to the south. They made this map on Friday. I bet when they look at it again this morning, they're going to start to shift it farther to the south with the risk. And by the way, you shift dryness into the south, it just takes one tropical system to outdo that. Now, temperature wise, don't forget, we finished the last 10 days of August and the first 10 days of September looking like this. And I just spent the past weekend at a soccer tournament in Lincoln, Illinois. And like it was 95 to 99 degrees every day because we flipped the pattern and now it looks something like that. That's how the last few days, last 4 days have shaped up. If you look, no major frost threat to be talked about across the country, and our max temperatures are still very hot again today here. But as you go into the middle of the week, that's Tuesday into Wednesday, look at this storm system that's cooling things off back here in Nebraska, Kansas, parts of Colorado. We're still hot in the eastern Corn Belt, cloud cover keeping it cool over in the mid-Atlantic. But then later in the week, Thursday, Friday, hey, we're backing things off to much more pleasant weather. If I could dial that up for Iowa, man, for you, I'd do it. 77 as a high in Des Moines, let's make it happen. But this pattern has an interesting signal to it, and I don't think the models have picked up on it yet. So here's the next 5 days. That's day 5 through 10. That looks like a pretty mild forecast, really a lot of warm weather. But beyond this, I think the models are missing something late in September and early October with the potential for the jet stream to do something like this. Bering Sea trough, that's here. Ridge in the west, that would be there. And some sort of trough here, reintroducing in that first week of October some cooler weather. I think we need to be on the lookout for that. So, Dawson, those are the big things I'm thinking about, both short and long term. And you're going, well, what about beyond that? And I'm just going to tell you, we do not have any strong sub-seasonal signals right now. So to say, oh, this is exactly how October is going to shape up, I don't see it yet. There's nothing out there giving me a clue. But in a minute, we can certainly talk about the long range getting out there into winter. I've certainly got some ideas on that.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be really curious to see what we're still thinking for that because I mean, we've been building these current drought moisture conditions for what 3 months now,
Oh, yeah.
where it's like
Places.
I mean, we have a lot to chip away at this point. So it's like, as you mentioned, yeah, drought doesn't always break gently. So we need the continuation of maybe some better chances of rain, as you already kind of alluded to in these kind of more long-term forecasts.
Yeah.
Is there a little bit of confidence just with the general trend? I know the long-range forecast predictions have not always really stacked up to reality for much of this year.
No, and I'll be honest, I'm waiting on the National Weather Service to update their stuff. They'll do it mid-month. They'll have it done this week. I'm very curious how they're going to distill all this down. But you're right. I mean, this didn't just happen overnight. This took 60 days to build in here. And we have big questions about the way this is going to go because look at the soil moisture values. That's a lot to overcome. And if it's not overcome by December, that's going to be there all the way till February, March. So we have a lot to be, I think, concerned about in the longer term forecast. In fact, let's just go look at one thing real quick here. One of my favorite sites is the National Multi-Model Ensemble. And if you're curious, like this is what it's predicting for October, November, December. Now, what's driving this? What's making it look like that? This broader dryness with wet in the Northwest is just the fact that we've got a La Nina right now, right? And that's your typical La Nina response in the models. They tend to keep the Sun Belt and the Cotton Belt dry. They tend to bring in moisture first to the Northwest and then later to the Ohio River Valley. And some of the models are doing that. Now, to be honest with you, the big question I have for the really long range before we talk about South America is this. If it's so warm here, if it still looks like that in December, we could be looking at a setup where this whole part of the United States gets very cold early. Like I'm talking late December through January, right? Not pushing it off. And then we'll likely see a very active Ohio Valley storm track driving systems up the East Coast. Now that's a drought busting pattern in the winter if I ever saw one for most of the central US and the East. But it would mean building in bigger drought in the West, which would be disastrous, knowing that right now that is where the majority of the drought is anchored. So yeah, that's some of my preliminary longer term thoughts, but it's predicated on La Nina and it's also thinking about how warm the North Pacific is. We get into winter, there's always sub-seasonal things that do the week to week to week, adjustments in the forecast, but that's the broader look that I've got right now.
For sure. And really quick too on South America,
Yeah.
what's the update there? I know they last week we mentioned that they're starting to plant down in southern Brazil, kind of moving along a little ahead of schedule yet. What do you got for the latest as we're still looking for a lot of these key dates? Currently September 15th, or September 15th, yeah, which is currently or usually the standard for when they start planting.
Yeah, but been several states got permission 2 weeks ago, right? That was like
Right.
Paraná, Mato Grosso do Sul. So the animation here is showing just the last couple of days of satellite measured rainfall. So this is not a radar. This is just using satellite temperatures to estimate rainfall. And you can see there's been some monsoonal storms. It's not like there's widespread coverage. It's been wettest down in parts of Argentina, for example, than anywhere else, maybe southern Brazil. But most of the models are attempting to increase precipitation. So the European model over the next 10 days, it's got this big front coming next Monday, Tuesday. Look at that. See that front coming up out of the south? That's going to spread through and bring in some rain. And the GFS is on board with it as well. Now that front's going to knock their temperatures down. Again, this is next Monday, Tuesday. It's not like it's widespread, super soaking rains, but they've had high temperatures close to 40 C in the Cerrado, which is about 100 to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. So they're going to knock the temperatures back. I don't right now have any major worry about a frost in southern Brazil. Plus, it's the wrong time of year to worry about it. If it was in October and I said there was a frost in southern Brazil, then we need to talk. But mid-September, they can have those then. I just think that with the rain coming in, you're going to get some folks really aggressively planting. Now, Here's the last thing I'll say about Brazil. The monsoon in the last decade that I've been watching it carefully, I don't ever remember a year where it just came on and stayed on. It always comes on in fits and starts. So we have to be aware that they may get some planting done on this moisture that's coming through by the end of the month. But what happens in October if it backs off for a few weeks? The most important thing is, what is their planting progress by November 1? And I think we got to watch that carefully.
Yeah, for sure. And we will be watching that here closely. Going to be curious to see how much of these rave tolls actually come to the US by the next time we're talking, but
Yeah.
going to be hoping for some of these deficits to for sure be chipped away at here moving forward as we, kind of continue to move through the harvest season. But with that, always appreciate your insights, Eric, and have a great week.
Yeah, I hope we can lose the 15% gain we had in the last month. 15% more area in the lower 48 is now in drought. Let's get rid of all that by November. So, all
Yeah,
right,
for
see you
sure.
guys.
Yep.